Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode in our podcast series sponsored by Core Comply. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have Marie Villanueva. Marie, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate that.
Marie, could you start off by telling us a little bit about your professional background?
So yes, I have some. Uh, let's see. I don't want to be so detailed. So we'll see. You tell me, right? So my background is a bachelor's in accounting, and I'm a former auditor. Spent about 4 years in public accounting, which was the base for the rest of my career, really, because I work on external audits, internal audits, forensic investigations. And the thread that comes through in all my jobs has been internal controls knowledge and looking for sometimes psychology behind wrongdoing and how to get employees to do the right thing. So that's been a passion. And I worked in telecom for a little bit, but Motorola. So I started my career in Chicago area. So then I moved to Abbott. And I think that's a big transition from healthcare exposure or life sciences exposure, as well as leadership development. As we know, I mean, Abbott's been written in a few books, Good to Great is to name one, but just a very well run healthcare company. It's been through many spin-offs and things like that over 100 years. But that experience in ethics and compliance eventually led to being really passionate about healthcare in the areas of commercial compliance, discounts, and the kickback statute and everything that falls under that. Eventually led a company or a division of a company on compliance with FCPA and then in Latin America as well for Zimmerby. So there's another current, and I think a lot of these companies have had settlements with the government, whether it is for U.S. healthcare compliance violations or outside of the U.S. with FCPA. So there's been that common theme in my career, working with the government or under the oversight of the government to ensure that we prove that we are compliant.
You touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to maybe ask you to expand about your attraction to healthcare. And I would further say, I've interviewed many healthcare professionals, literally down to delivery drivers, and they have all felt very passionate about what they do. And they felt like whatever their job was, and I'm going to give that delivery driver a shout out because he said, I'm taking people their medicine and I'm not the smartest guy, but I can help them get their medicine. And he was very proud of that. And it struck me that there's a passion in your profession and in your industry that maybe you don't see in other industries like telecom, energy, financial services, you name it. Could you really speak about what attracted you to healthcare and what continues to really clearly fire up your passions around that topic?
I think the interest in our health, it's always been something that I love to know because I want to live healthy and for a long time. So selfishly, that's the first interest, right? But once, I mean, an Abbott, and I talk about that pivotal move for me because they have this core competency for leadership where you have to know the business. And so you get exposure, the company wants to invest in people, especially leaders, to understand the business really well, which means understanding manufacturing, the whole product and how it's made and the research behind it, all the way to how we sell the selling channels and stuff. And so that involves going to, I mean, as a compliance professional, I've been to surgery in every industry that I've covered, looking at how they use the device, looking at how they sell the device, right? Because you don't want to, you want to, I think my role has been to prevent wrong push of products. So ethical selling. So that's always been a passion. So double passion, right? Healthcare, looking out for the best interest of the patient and making sure that our salespeople, even though they have motivations to make money and get their good commissions, that they do it ethically, even with that pressure of making more money. So be viewing this role as a service to the patient and really thinking about the patient as the end receiver of that device and making sure that we are not doing anything to keep a doctor from keeping that top of mind, which is in their ethics code, it's in our ethics code, but we know that people still deviate from that.
So, what are some of the unique challenges that you have seen in healthcare compliance? You mentioned ethical selling, but what are some of the other challenges that have either intrigued you or things that you've had some experience in dealing with those challenges?
I think the pricing pressures that the covered like healthcare providers have, and they pass that pressure on to manufacturers. That's difficult. And that's what leads to the discounting practices and how you provide the product. That's one of the areas. I think in the process of educating doctors with the use of the device, making sure that it is legitimately needed for them to travel somewhere to work on the device and how they deploy it on the patient or using models. All that conveys, well, yeah, well, I'm taking the doctor to training, but where is the doctor going? Is it a lavish location? Is it all these things to worry about? It can't be a very convenient place to also go shopping and also have a time off. So you have to balance all that. And then keeping up with the regulations and the enforcement practices. Sometimes you don't know that something's going on until there's an advisory opinion or there's somebody that gets in trouble for specific practices. So and it tends to be fluid. The things move fast. And that's some of the type things that I would think are challenging.
At one of your positions, I noted at Raw Medical, if I have that name correct, you were head of compliance and head of HR. How did you balance those two positions?
What's interesting as I was reflecting on that opportunity, I obviously the people that decided that I liked the style of my leadership style and thought I would do well. But I found that because usually compliance finds problems and then we identify after we investigate a matter, well, the discipline really should be given to HR to help us determine what discipline should be. So in that role, I had to do both. I had to find the problem and then come up with discipline. And I felt like it was I became less approachable. So compliance people, we always try to get people to open up and have a certain messaging around. If you give us, I mean, for me, if you give me the problem, I'll help you solve the problem. But then if I'm gonna be also I kind of have to have the other role of the discipline, the prescription, the medicine that I'm gonna give to the employee, it may result in a little bit of fear, right? More fear for the employee. Although compliance people are never like welcome with open arms unless it is the right type of organization that wants to do the right thing. And then you feel that. And I think Raw Medical was at the point I joined with everybody was on board. So it wasn't a big impact, but it is. You have to be very disciplined with both roles. And also rely on experts if you're not an expert in an area. It areas in HR quite a lot of I guess external support like labor council, things of that nature that can become complicated and highly risky for the company.
I wanted to go, I can't pass up the opportunity to go into the weeds with you on some compliance topics. One of the areas that compliance officers always talk about, but frankly, I'm not sure we have enough really intellectual discussion, is about resourcing. And resourcing could be headcount, resourcing can be dollars for spend, it can be aggregate spend. And given the positions you've had in compliance functions at various corporations, how do you see some of the compliance challenges around aggregate spend?
That's been an interesting area. I worked on that when the regulation was becoming due that we needed to report. And then I transitioned to organizations where somebody in corporate was doing that. Then I came back once it was going. I think it was the last couple roles with the last companies. I've been the one that's doing the work, getting the data, building the assumption document and then submitting the data to CMS. I have to tell you for this experience with by tissue is that relying on a third party, relying on them to help us sort through the data and then keeping me on point and at times with this is how that would be handled. I think that changed the world for me. The raw medical, I was doing that all by myself. And so that I can appreciate the difference between having just me with some resources people that I know that can help me out, as opposed to having a company that's actually with you in the weeds, like you said, going through the data and then sitting in the middle of it all to figure out what are the outliers, why are there duplicates. Let's go find this information. Let's go sort through this, ask a few more questions, and review the data that I uploaded, for instance, to a platform. So I think having a third party that can be there with you is ideal. And I'm grateful for the company because that's money, right? That you can't just get that for free. And to your point, that's resources are limited, but I think making the case for how beneficial something like that is for the company to be correct in the disclosures that are made to the government is it's very important for the company's success meeting their goals, but also for the sanity of the compliance people running the program.
How about the move in healthcare compliance around data analytics? It's not simply analyzing the data, it is obviously collecting the data, then it is analyzing the data, but then it's action, using those analytics or insights from the data you've collected to move to improve your overall compliance regime. Could you talk about that process as you have used it?
So, I think there are so many aspects to data in the training of the people that are using, or for our case, for my case, the data that I look for at the most is this transfers of value or aggregate spend, but it could be discounts, could be, I don't know, other types of transactions. And it's the comfort that all transactions are in the one system, right? The completeness, which is one of the accounting assertions when you audit. Do I have all the data? Is all the data in this system? And so if you have a speaker program and a speaker third party that provides the food and pays a speaker, that health professional fee going to be on that system. So I have to understand where all the transactions are going, and my internal people that are working with doctors need to also understand why I care so much about where the transactions are, if they use a credit card versus the payment system. And then I have to go find the two places and match it with the events activities or the events list that they have for the year. So I think it's and understanding where everything is coming from, training your partners, the internal customers to understand where they need to put the transactions in and how to log it. Like vendors, the vendor classification. It's one area that I've been with companies that clean that up and classify every vendor in a bucket so that when you are looking for payments to this type of vendor, government vendor or HCP, you're going to get all the transactions. So I think we talk about garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know where the information is or if you don't understand the classification of it, you're going to end up inundated with data and not being able to figure out unless you define another way to find it. So these are the things that I think about. And the partners, to me, the IT collaboration with compliance is huge. I'm very close to my IT partner currently and past as well. Their understanding and the accounting team too. Sometimes they are so focused on their transactions and they have to understand if they don't understand the needs of the business and the data that I'm going to need at the end, it really hinders the company.
That really brings up a topic that I'm intrigued by you on, and that is your professional background coming out of accounting and a CPA, moving into compliance. And in listening to you a little bit earlier, you talked about literally diving into the weeds on the numbers. And you gave a specific example of conferences or dinners with doctors. And what I wanted to ask is you're I'm a lawyer by professional background, so I have a very different training than you. But it sounds like to me that your experience doing the in the weeds numbers work has really given you a sense and ability to look at much bigger pictures in compliance. So, could you say a few words about perhaps a CPA or an accounting undergraduate at college who may want to go into compliance and why you think your that background and your background can be such a powerful tool as you move up the chair to a CCO role?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because I've always struggled. There was a big interest of mine to pursue law, and for mindsets or life circumstances, I didn't. And so that's the difference about me and compliance because typically my peers tend to be attorney, right? So what I always talk about is if our compliance world is focused on how to pay a bribe or how to induce doctors, we young have to understand the accounting systems and where should these transactions be. So it does give an advantage in a way, understanding that, having a good understanding of internal controls and systems. But I think because I don't have that law degree, I have to apply myself on that side and study that and read all types of regulations. And not that all these things tend to be new. So even if you got a law degree, you still have to educate yourself on some of the new regulations that come out. But I always find it that it's great to collaborate with attorneys. It's good to have a diverse group of people in compliance. Attorneys, non-attorneys, people that come from operations, people that come from sales, transition to compliance. And that different perspective gives you a different type of contribution to the organization. So I think companies that understand that diversity of discipline and compliance, I think they do really well. And yes, I think speaking selfishly, I think I do like my background and I have found it to be very fulfilling. I actually do really enjoy this field that I got into by luck, coincidence, or some people that led me this way out of when I actually wanted to go back after the importation compliance at Abbott. I wanted to go back to accounting, and the compliance officer persuaded me. And I won't repeat some of the words, but he was like, "Do you want to pursue that path or come to do this type of work?" And I had a flavor of it, and I pursued compliance. And I like the different areas that we get into: training, policy development, monitoring and auditing, and then just investigating. But sometimes branding, doing the marketing work for compliance, getting to get people to really see the value in doing the right thing and how it impacts everything.
Whoever that person was, on behalf of the compliance community, I'm going to say thank you for keeping you in our field. Other than data analytics, perhaps the most ubiquitous word in compliance right now is AI. And a lot of us are struggling how to use it. How should we use it? What are the data privacy implications? How do we govern it? How do we double check it? And so I really wanted to just ask you as a starting point, what are some of the challenges that you are working through now? And where do you see this topic perhaps down the road in a few years?
So I think it sounds very intimidating. I think we've felt that, but I think it's been around longer than we sometimes think. So I think uh, one of the things I was thinking about with this question is I, the more we let it intimidate us, the worse it's going to be. And we just need to make investment and I think as much as we can, but know that it's a fluid thing. Just like I've spent as a when they came out, it was one thing and it was pure healthcare professionals. Now it's broader. So we just need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable with AI. And I think there are many companies that are providing training to AI, using AI for training purposes, using AI to ask questions about policies, and we're pursuing that right now. But then also using AI to audit the AI tools. So it's like, okay, so you're gonna hire people because you don't know how it works 100% of the time. That's the worry, right? If we have an AI tool that does training and it gives the wrong information to a rep, that's a big problem. So we have to get comfortable with the tool, maybe do a lot of testing before we take it on or launch it in a limited manner so that we get comfortable with what information is being provided. So those are some of the things that I think about. But I think we need to go with it because it can actually save money. I mean, save time is money. Save you, become more efficient, save you time, but also it can be very effective and it can focus you on areas where there's high risk or there's a problem with transactions because AI has pre-identified something for you to look into. I think we need to get comfortable with that uncertainty. And that's what life is about, right? Getting comfortable with the uncertain.
I really like the way you phrase that because I think that's something that we can all relate to. I want to maybe, as we move towards the end of this episode, Maria, ask what are some of the key issues you see down the road in 2030 and beyond? And I'm going to say that's mid century for those who are aghast at the thought we are at now, the mid century part of the 21st century. What do you see are some of the things down the road you and your colleagues are looking at?
I sometimes I'm surprised that we're after 20 years in this industry, we're still talking about the same thing. So it may be some new amazing thing, some use of AI, robotic use with surgeries. Now they're doing, it's helping a lot doctors with surgeries. And I think there'll be more advances in medicine, but then there'll be some of the same problems where people make are tempted to, or pressured, I should say, pressured to make the wrong decision or not say no doctor or not say the right thing to a doctor or a healthcare professional. Yeah, there's with the advances in technology, I don't know, but I think the pressures in healthcare spend and the pressures of pricing, I think that's gonna be, I don't know, probably not addressed. A lot of it has I mean, a lot of it is our system, right? How healthcare works in the US and the pressures of making money sometimes. So I think there'll be that.
Maria, unfortunately, we are at the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask if our listeners wanted to connect with you or perhaps get more information on you, what might be the best place for them to go?
I think LinkedIn, I stay connected through that platform and with connect with people that want to collaborate and learn and network.
Maria, I wanted to thank you. This has been a fabulous visit. I hope we can continue this conversation.